I don't even know how to begin. It's not clickbait, this is for real. Let's say several months ago, I found myself sitting in a hotel room haphazardly flipping through the TV channels. Right around 11 p.m. when most stations just throw on a bunch of low-cost stuff to fill the airtime until people wake up the next morning. It's at these hours that you truly never know what you're going to find. Could be a classic game show rerun, could be a sleepy documentary, could be a terrible infomercial, or it could be an old Hollywood B-movie. No, not that, a B-movie. Old low-budget horror flicks intended as the closing picture back when double-feature drive-ins were a thing. On this particular evening, I found myself quickly absorbed by one such film, a Spanish-dubbed movie called El Terror, a ghost story set in the early 1800s in which a young French soldier played by none other than Jack Nicholson investigates a mysterious castle owned by a spooky baron played by Hollywood legend Boris Karloff. Why was it airing on a local Spanish TV channel that time of night? Who knows, not important to the story. What is important is that El Terror turns out to be one of the weirdest Hollywood productions ever. It is not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, and yet somehow the credits roll of this film contains several Hollywood icons. Besides Nicholson and Karloff, you're gonna see directors Roger Corman, Francis Ford Coppola. Coppola helped make this? The dude who made The Godfather made this?
Gracias, señor, pero me encuentro muy cansado.
Am I losing my mind? What am I watching here? Why are all these insanely talented and famous artists listed in such a horrible movie? It's not a joke. It all starts with director Roger Corman and the works of Edgar Allan Poe. Around the time of its production, Poe's horror stories had entered into the public domain, and Corman, being a huge fan, decided to take Poe's most popular work and create his own cinematic universe of sorts, beginning with 1960's House of Usher, which became an unexpected hit and launched what would become a collection of 8 films adapted from Poe's writing. In 1963, Corman was working on The Raven, a comedy horror film that included star Boris Karloff and a then relatively unknown Jack Nicholson in the supporting cast. The Raven had a $300,000 budget and featured big talent and big movie sets, but Corman liked to shoot fast, and he ended up wrapping the movie a couple of days earlier than anticipated. So, with 2 days left on the books for all of the actors and locations, Corman decided, hey, why don't I just shoot another movie? He quickly called a writer friend to come over for a brief brainstorming session, and before long, they had a 60-page script hastily thrown together. He wasn't too picky on the movie's details, it just had to be a gothic film in the vein of Edgar Allan Poe and use the leftover castle set that they had on loan for The Raven. They threw a bunch of costumes and props together and started shooting. A few hours into production, it became obvious the entire film would not be completed in 2 days. So Corman shot all of Karloff's scenes, knowing he couldn't afford to book him again, and then planned to shoot the rest of the movie later on after they had time to give the script a bit more polish. To give you an idea of how thrown together these scenes are, Karloff described the shooting process in an interview detailing how he and Corman essentially spent 2 days running around with a camera grabbing various bits and pieces, shots here and there, while the Raven's wrecking crew was literally tearing the sets down around them. Needless to say, most of those shots made very little sense because they were constantly retooling the script as they shot. But 2 days later, Karloff's scenes were wrapped and everybody went home relatively happy. 3 months later, Corman started looking over the footage and drawing up some plans to shoot the rest of the movie. While putting a new crew together, he ran into union trouble, and so he hired a 24-year-old broke wannabe film director named Francis Ford Coppola to shoot some extra footage and fill in the movie's blank spots. Coppola roped in some fellow film students from UCLA and planned to spend 3 days shooting footage with Jack Nicholson and a few other actors. 11 days later, they were still shooting, and Corman was getting upset at the delays. Coppola eventually got hired for a different job that probably paid, and dumped Corman's project on one of his UCLA buddies named Dennis Jacob. Jacob spent 3 days directing while hilariously simultaneously shooting a movie of his own on the side, and then turned his shots in to Corman. Corman took his, Coppola, and Jacobs' footage and threw a work print version of the movie together. But the results were less than stellar, so he hired another young director by the name of Monte Hellman to spend 5 more days shooting new stuff. During this time, the script was completely rewritten with the intent of salvaging all of the assets gathered up to that point. But the new footage from Hellman just made the film's storyline even more convoluted, so Corman then hired another young director by the name of Jack Hill to do more rewrites and film even more scenes. But by this point, it had been about a year since the project started, so the various actors' appearances had changed drastically. Dick Miller's sideburns change shot to shot, and he put on 20 pounds over the course of shooting, resulting in him looking a lot different as the movie progresses. Sandra Knight, the female lead, was pregnant by the time Hill took over, so her final scenes are all shot from the waist up. At some point, even Jack Nicholson, the movie's main actor, allegedly took over directing duties too and put together a few scenes of his own. By the time all this footage got back to Corman, he realized he had a movie with 5 different directors and thus 5 different story interpretations. Realizing this caused quite a few gaps in the movie's internal logic and feeling the overall thing needed a bit more spark, Corman hopped back into the director's chair and filmed one last scene between Miller and Nicholson, meant to fill the movie's plot holes and give the story one last entertaining twist. And over a year later, the movie was finally finished. The result is a mishmash of scenes that do not line up well, a plot that can't figure out what kind of movie it wants to be, subpar lighting and subpar sound, but hey, it's a B movie. Back then, nobody cared. The film was, after all, just an experiment to throw something together with next to no money. Even if it did poorly at the box office, it would still break even. This patched together picture is remembered today mainly for the crazy story of its production and the fact that several people who worked on it went on to become famous for other things. Today it's in the public domain because nobody bothered to renew the copyright on it, but I'm not interested in the lame English version. I'm interested in that Spanish dub that I saw on TV. I'm a fan of El Terror because, in my opinion, despite all the film's continuity and production problems, the overdubbed foreign language in some weird way makes it work. I don't know what it is, but something about watching a young Jack Nicholson acting his heart out in a Spanish B-movie is like the funniest thing to me.
Y ahora usted cree que el espíritu de Ilsa ha vuelto para librarle de su pena, ¿es eso? Sí.
I have no idea what's happening,
Que ese fantasma mora en el castillo.
but it's awesome. And I think you might find it entertaining too. So, a few days ago, I tracked down the production company that made it, and I bought the rights. It's not a joke. This is the contract right here. It took like several weeks to put this thing together. It is remarkably difficult to purchase film rights from a company when you don't speak their native language. I still honestly don't think they understand why I want it. So after paying a broadcasting fee, thank you Squarespace, I own non-exclusive broadcasting rights for the next 2 years for El Terror. So the reason I've done this is because I want to show you all this just crazy movie. I'm gonna stream it on my channel so that everybody can see it. So El Terror, a B-movie horror film featuring Jack Nicholson, will be streaming on this channel very soon. Special thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I know what you're thinking, Austin, did you really use your sponsorship money to secure the rights to a cheesy Jack Nicholson B-movie just so you could make a dumb YouTube video about its production? Yes, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website. With no hidden fees, they make it easy to get set up. Start from one of their beautiful templates and then customize it to your specific needs. They offer video and audio blocks to help jumpstart the aspiring podcaster or videographer, and with simultaneous posting, they let you get your message across multiple platforms all at once. If you want to start an online business, Squarespace lets you easily set up an online store storefront. You can try it all out for free at squarespace.com. If you like the experience, then head over to squarespace.com/AustinMcConnell to launch your site and save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all of the latest developments, if you care.